Yeah, second one.
Second one, thank you. So we should start our discussion now. We were talking about the function of transfer of energy, and the very message about this topic has been discussed in previous lecture, and we discussed that the nature of energy transfer is acyclic, right? We should try to dictate the very elaborate information about this topic. So please start writing. Transfer of energy should be your heading, and write down the ultimate source of energy, the ultimate source of energy for most of the ecosystems, for most of the ecosystems of biosphere, for most of the ecosystems of biosphere is most of the ecosystems of biosphere is sun and its sunlight. Sun and its sunlight. And in bracket, inorganic form of energy. Inorganic form of energy. Bracket close. Inorganic form of energy, bracket close. Full stop. This energy got introduced into an ecosystem with the help of photosynthesis, with the help of photosynthesis process, with the help of photosynthesis process, with the help of photosynthesis process performed by producer biotic components, full stop. Next line. Through the process of photosynthesis, comma, inorganic form of energy converts into its organic form, and within bracket, what is that organic form? Carbohydrate and other organic compounds full stop. Again from next line. With the help of feeding behavior of heterotrophs, feeding behavior of heterotrophs components, comma, introduced energy introduced energy transfer across different trophic levels of ecosystem. Full stop. Again from next line. It should be noted that this entire process of energy transfer is governed by 10% law of energy, which says that 10% law of energy which says that quantum of energy available at a particular trophic level is only 10% of energy available at preceding trophic level or previous trophic level. Full stop. It means that almost all quantum of introduced energy completely dissipate at last trophic level of ecosystem. Full stop. Therefore, we can say that nature of energy transfer between its source and ecosystem is acyclic. And you should underline this term, acyclic. Now, it was the very first function. If you can recall the very information of our previous lecture, I said that the very medium to fulfill the requirement of energy is nothing but different nutrients. Different nutrients can be considered with the help of multiple examples like carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, sulfur, phosphorus, and so on, right? So this transfer of energy is actually governed by the another transfer mechanism, and that is the transfer of all these different nutrients, right? So now we have to talk about the very manner of transfer of different nutrients, and transfer of nutrients between what? So again your answer would be what? their natural source. Every nutrient has its own natural source, and ecosystem. What is the manner of transfer of all these nutrients between their source and ecosystem? Now I'm going to take up that dimension, and we can consider the another title of transfer of nutrient. This is the second function of ecosystem, transfer of nutrient. Please put heading transfer of nutrients. It should be your heading, transfer of nutrients. Look, I'm initially trying to present the very generalized information about transfer mechanism of different nutrients. As I said, that nutrients are actually present within their natural reserve in their inert form. In their inert form. Inert form is an stable form of any element. A stable form means what? Non-reactive. Non-reactive. So let's say if we talk about carbon nutrient. So carbon nutrient is actually present within atmosphere in form of CO2 gas. In form of CO2 gas. So this CO2 gas can be considered as one stable form of this nutrient, and this stable form is present within atmosphere. So in this same manner, every nutrient actually present within their natural reserve in their stable form, right? And the very journey of this transfer of these nutrients starts from their, you can say, point of origin, and point of origin is nothing but their natural reserve, right? What happens? These nutrients used to introduce from their natural reserve to ecosystem, and this introduction is actually facilitated by various different processes. We will talk about those processes, and again after introduction of these nutrients within ecosystem, they keeps on transferring across different trophic levels with the help of again feeding behavior of heterotrophs. But at the same time, various other activities of these biotic components as well as some natural phenomenon actually, you can say, regulate this transfer mechanism of these nutrients. And what happens, the very form of all these different nutrients keeps on changing in the process of this transfer. How this form keeps on changing? If I would like to present one example here, carbon is present in atmosphere in form of CO2. But this carbon this carbon actually introduces within ecosystem in the form of carbohydrate and hydrocarbon. So what is happening? Form is changing, right? Again, this carbohydrate actually consumed by different heterotrophs through their feeding behavior, right? And you all are familiar with one natural activity of biotic component known as respiration. What happens due to respiration? Through respiration, these biotic component again releases that carbon nutrient into its reserve atmosphere in form of CO2 gas, right? So what I want to say here, that form of these nutrients keeps on changing in the entire journey of this transfer from their reserve to ecosystem. But irrespective of the fact that form of these nutrients is changing, but ultimately what is happening, by changing their form, nutrients ultimately released back, or you can say revert back into their natural reserve from where they started their journey, right? So if you try to trace this entire manner of transfer of nutrients, so we can say कि nature of nutrient transfer between ecosystem and their reserve is not acyclic, rather it is cyclic in nature, right? And why I am saying so? Because the very journey of all nutrients actually completes in cyclic manner, and cyclic manner means what? These nutrients ultimately revert back from ecosystem into their natural reserve. And how this process of, you can say, transfer actually regulated. So this process of transfer of you can say nutrients is regulated by different activities of biotic component and some natural phenomena, right? That's why the entire subject of nutrient transfer is also discussed in the name of can be discussed in the name of nutrient cycle. You cannot use this term for energy transfer. In books you will not find this title energy cycle, because transfer of energy is not cyclic in nature. But when we talk about transfer of nutrients, since the very manner of their transfer is cyclic in nature, that's why we can use this title also, nutrient cycle. So we have to talk about different nutrient cycle, right? And whatever content which we are going to discuss under this title, the entire content can be divided into two parts. But initially you should write down a basic introductory aspect first. Please write down, put heading transfer of nutrient, it should be your heading, and write various nutrients such as carbon, hydrogen, various nutrients such as carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, etc., are the source of energy, for biotic components of ecosystem, source of energy for biotic components of ecosystem, full stop. These nutrients present within their natural reserve. This natural reserve may be what? In bracket write down what would be that natural reserve. Either atmosphere or surface of earth. Either atmosphere or surface of earth. Bracket close. The manner of transfer of nutrients, between their natural reserve and ecosystem, is cyclic in nature. That's why nutrient transfer can also be discussed That's why nutrient transfer can also be discussed as nutrient cycle, nutrient cycle or nutrient cycle or nutrient cycle or biogeochemical cycle. Nutrient cycle or biogeochemical cycle. So if you have to define this term nutrient cycle in a very brief manner, how you can define? Nutrient cycle is the process of what? Cyclic transfer. Cyclic transfer of nutrient between its reserve and ecosystem. This is a very 1 or 2 line definition of this term nutrient cycle. You can continue that paragraph. Different not different, various term would be more appropriate. Various nutrient cycles are broadly divided into two different categories. First category is of gaseous cycle. First one is gaseous cycle. And please write the very explanation of this term, what gaseous cycle means. Those nutrient cycles in which natural reserve of nutrient is atmosphere. Natural reserve of nutrient is atmosphere. They are known as what? Gaseous cycle. And 3 most popular example of gaseous cycle are, you should write down 3 examples. First one is hydrological cycle. In layman term, it is also referred as water cycle, right? Hydrological cycle. Second one is carbon cycle. And third one is nitrogen cycle. So it was the first category known as gaseous cycle. Now second one is sedimentary cycle. Sedimentary, or sometimes it is also known as terrestrial cycle. Sedimentary or terrestrial cycle. And what is the criteria of sedimentary cycle? Those nutrient cycles in which natural reserve of nutrient is surface of earth. For example, sulfur cycle, phosphorus cycle, calcium cycle. These are few examples of sedimentary cycles. Sulfur cycle, phosphorus cycle, calcium cycle, etc. Now look, here we should follow a very smart approach for approaching this entire topic. The very you can say frequent behavior of UPSC and other state public service commissions is to ask major number of questions from these gaseous cycle, those three names which we written: hydrological, carbon and nitrogen cycle. Out of these three gaseous cycle, carbon and nitrogen cycle topic are also very important, right? And as far as sedimentary, different types of sedimentary cycles are concerned, all these sedimentary cycles are governed by common, you can say, common procedure. So we should talk about that common procedure only, which is applicable for every, you can say, every type of sedimentary cycle. But as far as carbon and nitrogen cycle are concerned, they are very different topic, and I can say they are very interesting topic. So I'm going to present these two different cycles in elaborate form. As far as hydrological cycle is concerned, so hydrological cycle means what? Hydrological cycle means it is a cycle which represent cyclic transfer of water. Is not a nutrient. Water is an example of compound, but it consists nutrients, hydrogen and H2O means what? Hydrogen and oxygen. So hydrological cycle represent the cyclic transfer of how many nutrients? Hydrogen and oxygen between their reserve and, you can say, ecosystem. And you all know that this hydrological cycle actually completes in form of different stages. Let's say the very first stage starts with the help of, or in the name of, evaporation of water bodies. Then evaporation is followed by, you can say, condensation, then cloud formation, rainfall, right? Let's say this is terrestrial, ecosystem. So rainfall over terrestrial ecosystem, in fact rainfall also over aquatic ecosystem. But from terrestrial ecosystem again there is runoff water from terrestrial ecosystem to aquatic ecosystem, and some portion is actually absorbed and converts as a what? Groundwater. So all these, whether it is the case of evaporation or condensation, cloud formation, rainfall, runoff, absorption of water, all these are different stages of which cycle? Hydrological cycle. And these terms are very, very common for all of us, right? So what I'm trying to do, I'm presenting a very brief content about hydrological cycle. It is just a formality. Please put heading hydrological cycle. This cycle represent a cyclic transfer of hydrogen and oxygen nutrients, hydrogen and oxygen nutrients, hydrogen and oxygen nutrients between their natural reserve and ecosystem. Full stop. The entire process of hydrological cycle, full stop and continue. The entire process of hydrological cycle complete in form of following different stages, in form of following different stages, in form of following different stages. First stage, evaporation from aquatic body, evaporation of water from aquatic body. Second, condensation. Third, cloud formation. Third one is cloud formation. Next, rainfall. Then runoff, OFF, runoff of surface water, runoff of surface water from terrestrial areas, surface water from terrestrial areas towards aquatic bodies. And one more, last one, absorption of surface water within surface of earth. So it was the very brief content of hydrological cycle. Our major interest is to talk about carbon and nitrogen cycle. I am initiating the very discussion of carbon cycle. Put heading carbon cycle, and I should request you all to develop the very proper understanding about different stages of this cycle, because the mechanism of carbon cycle will assist you to develop a very unique perception about the contemporary problem of global warming. You can present the entire picture of global warming by using the concept of carbon cycle. But for it, you should have proper understanding about this particular process known as carbon cycle. You can say कि carbon cycle is also completes in the form of some different stages, right? Or you can say the entire journey of carbon cycle has various stages. I can present myself in this manner also. This very carbon is actually present within atmosphere in form of CO2 gas, and let's say this is an ecosystem. right? And above portion represent atmosphere, right? So this carbon is actually introducing from its reserve into ecosystem, and this introduction is actually facilitated by this introduction of carbon into ecosystem is facilitated by whom? By green plants. And this process of introduction is actually, you can say, discussed in the name of photosynthesis. So this is the first. Photosynthesis means introduction of carbon nutrient into ecosystem is the first stage of carbon cycle, right? You should write it down. The entire process of carbon cycle, can be divided into the entire process of carbon cycle can be divided into following stages. First one, photosynthesis. First stage is of photosynthesis, and you should write down introduction of carbon into ecosystem. Under photosynthesis, please write introduction of carbon into ecosystem. And within bracket you should write down conversion of CO2 into carbohydrate. Within bracket, conversion of CO2 into carbohydrate. Now second stage, transfer of carbon nutrient in form of carbohydrate across different trophic levels of ecosystem, full stop. Across different trophic levels, full stop. This transfer of carbohydrate is facilitated by feeding behavior of heterotrophs component, right? Now third stage, respiration. Respiration. Transfer of carbon into atmosphere in form of CO2. Transfer of carbon into atmosphere in form of CO2. Fourth stage, and the title of fourth stage is sedimentation. Please put this name, sedimentation. Sedimentation means what? We can explain it. Sedimentation. After the death of biotic component, after the death of biotic component, after the death of biotic components, after the death of biotic components, comma, their body start decomposing, and their body start decomposing, again comma, which led to LED, which led to the process of, which led to the process of breaking down, which led to the process of breaking down of complex carbon based organic compound, complex carbon based organic compound of body, compounds of body, carbon based organic compounds of body in their simpler form, full stop. This process of decomposition, full stop and continue. This process of decomposition takes place within soil, result of this, one popular or famous result of this process, is formation of fossil fuel, fuels. Right? Any doubt? Now, the last stage of carbon cycle is the very process of, you can say, reverting back that particular carbon nutrient from soil into atmosphere. And this process is facilitated by biological reactions of various bacteria and other biotic components which are actually present within soil, and they use to convert carbon based compounds of soil into carbon dioxide gas. And with this particular transfer of CO2 gas into atmosphere, the entire journey of carbon cycle completed, right? So this is the last stage of carbon cycle. Write down. Next one, sedimentation, and last one is write down with the help of with the help of various biological reactions taking place within soil, taking place within surface of soil, comma, carbon based compounds are converted into CO2 gas, comma, which releases into atmosphere, So these are different stages of carbon cycle. But if you try to look at all these different stages, you can easily say that these different stages are different types of natural phenomena. Whether it is photosynthesis or respiration or sedimentation or biological reaction, all these are natural phenomena. But if we try to look at the actual scenario of our human society, or you can say entire earth, especially since last 300 years, means I am talking about the very time scenario after first industrial revolution, which actually took place during mid 18th century, 1757. So if you try to look at the very condition or the very mechanism of carbon cycle after first industrial revolution, so you can say that now an extra stage has been added in this carbon cycle, and this extra stage which has been added in last 300 years is purely an anthropogenic you can say stage or process. And what is that anthropogenic stage? From the surface of earth, CO2 gas is being released into atmosphere by various not natural but anthropogenic phenomenon such as industrialization, diesel petrol based vehicles. But these are not natural phenomena. These are purely anthropogenic factors. Anthropogenic means what? Man-made or human-induced factor is known as anthropogenic. So this extra stage or additional stage has been added in carbon cycle, especially since last 300 years. And with respect to passage of time, this additional stage is actually starts dominating over all other stages, natural stages. And what is the end result of this domination? Domination of this anthropogenic stage over rest other stages of carbon cycle. What is the end result of this domination? The very quantum of CO2 gas in our atmosphere is increasing. And due to this particular problem of increment in quantum of CO2 gas, various environmental problems are becoming reality for our entire human society. One such problem is the problem of global warming, right? So how we can appreciate this seventh stage? Before talking about seventh stage, we should be very attentive about the natural balance which can be noticed among all these different natural stages of carbon cycle. There is a balance which is maintained, the balance is maintaining among all these natural stages. And what is the result of that natural balance? The result of this natural balance among these natural stages is what? Ki CO2 is present in atmosphere in its natural, or you can say normal quantity. This is the end result of this balance across all these natural stages. और ये बैलेंस बना कैसे हुआ है कि through photosynthesis process, extra quantity of CO2 is actually filtered out from atmosphere and it actually utilizes by whom? Green plants for their own requirement. But these all activities are not man-made activities. These are purely what? Natural activities. Similarly, when you talk about respiration or this biological reaction process, all these are natural activities. And our creature has maintained this balance between all these natural activities, and due to this balance, the quantity of carbon dioxide was maintained in its, you can say, moderate quantum within atmosphere. But what is happening since last 300 years? In last 300 years, there has been evolution of an extra stage in carbon cycle, and this extra stage is purely an anthropogenic process of CO2 emission, right? And this particular anthropogenic stage is actually starting its domination over all other natural stages of carbon cycle. And due to the domination of this anthropogenic stage, the capacity of all these natural activities is being compromised. And due to this, quantity of CO2 in atmosphere is actually what? Increasing. And increment of CO2 in atmosphere is actually, you can say, creating lot of trouble for entire human society. And as I said, the most popular subject of concern is the problem of global warming. So by referring that carbon cycle mechanism, you can present your own opinion about global warming, right? So we should try to add this content here only by changing paragraph right down. There is a natural balance. There is a natural balance established among all these five natural stages of carbon cycle, full stop. This this balance help in filtration of extra quantum of CO2 gas from atmosphere, full stop. This process of filtration of CO2 gas from atmosphere, is known as carbon sequestration. Sequence term से बना है ये term, SEQUESTRATION, carbon sequestration. And I'd like to take your opinion. Which entity plays a very crucial role in this carbon sequestration process? Carbon sequestration means what? To filter out extra CO2 from atmosphere. So which entity plays a very crucial role in this entire sequestration process? This sequestration become possible due to which phenomenon? Photosynthesis. This photosynthesis is that process which is actually utilizing atmospheric CO2 for its own, you can say, purpose. And photosynthesis is the natural activity of green plants, right? When you talk about the ecosystem based on green plants over terrestrial location, so that is the ecosystem of forest. And when you try to talk about green plant based ecosystem in aquatic regions, that is the ecosystem. Most popular ecosystem is of ocean, right? Because in ocean the role of green plant is performed by, the role of photosynthesis is actually performed by phytoplanktons. But when we talk about terrestrial ecosystem, the same function is performed by green plants, right? So these green plants based ecosystem, which is forest, phytoplankton based most popular ecosystem, aquatic, that is ocean, these are two different ecosystems which are actually providing their instrumental contribution in the process of carbon sequestration. And how they are contributing towards carbon sequestration? They are actually absorbing what? Atmospheric CO2. That's why ocean and forest, they are known as two most important carbon sink, right? Ocean and forest. And when you have to compare ocean and forest, your primary attention should be over ocean. Capacity of ocean to absorb atmospheric CO2 is much larger than the capacity of forest. Why so? Because you all have this information that 70% proportion of earth is covered by water, right? So whatever amount of CO2 which has been absorbed by ocean as well as by forest, when you will compare this quantum, so you will found that oceanic ecosystem has been absorbed so much higher quantum of CO2 compared to forest ecosystem. That's why your first rank should be for ocean and then forest. So you should not forget this information at any cost. Two most popular example of natural carbon sink. What should be your answer? Ocean and forest, right? You can add on here only. From next line, continue. Ocean and forest are those natural ecosystems which plays instrumental role in the process of absorption of atmospheric CO2. In the process of absorption of atmospheric CO2, that's why they are known as natural carbon sink. That's why they are known as natural carbon sink. Again, SINK, sink. Again, you should change paragraph and continue. Especially after first industrial revolution of 18th century, mid 18th century, especially after first industrial revolution of mid 18th century, comma, an extra anthropogenic stage has been added in the process of carbon cycle, which is the stage of emission of CO2 gas from various anthropogenic sources such as industries, diesel, petrol based vehicles, etc. Full stop. Due to this anthropogenic emission of CO2, into atmosphere, into atmosphere, comma, natural absorption capacity, natural CO2 absorption capacity, natural CO2 absorption capacity of forest and ocean, of forest and ocean is being compromised full stop. It causes increase in concentration of CO2 gas within atmosphere. It causes increase in concentration of CO2 gas. About those nitrogen fixing bacteria who actually found in soil, they are of two types. You can draw this diagram. All nitrogen fixing bacteria are of two types. Free living within soil and two most popular free living nitrogen fixing bacteria are, one is Azobacter, Cyanobacter. Cyanobacter is also known as blue-green algae. If you want, you can add third example here, Clostridium. These are three most popular free living, but which type of bacteria? Here I am talking about only nitrogen fixing bacteria we are talking about. So all these names are of nitrogen fixing bacteria. Free living means what? They can be found in soil in free manner. They are not associated with any other entity. But there is another category of some plant-based bacteria. Plant-based bacteria means they are not free living, rather they are actually present along roots of plants within soil, and you can say that these plant-based bacteria are actually, you can say, they have character to ensure their association with not with every type of plants. These are some specific type of plants which are associated with these bacteria, and such plants are known as leguminous plants. What? Leguminous plants. Various type of rabi crops are considered as the example of leguminous crops, such as peas, right? Gram plant. These are some example of leguminous plants. So ये जो बैक्टीरिया है, प्लांट बेस्ड जो बैक्टीरिया हैं, ये इसी तरीके के लेग्यूमिनस प्लांट्स की रूट के साथ पाए जाते हैं. And since they are actually founding in close association with the root of such plants, that's why we are not treating them as a free living, right? और ये रूट के साथ क्यों पाए जाते हैं? Because होता क्या है कि ये जो प्लांट्स की रूट्स होती हैं ये इन बैक्टीरियाज को हैबिटेट प्रोवाइड करती हैं और उसके रिटर्न में these plants used to secrete various required nutrients from the body of such bacteria. So you can say कि there is a you can say win-win type of interaction between that plant and this bacteria. And at least one example should be presented here. An example of plant-based nitrogen-fixing bacteria, that is rhizobium. 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 You should write down this name. This is the most popular example of plant-based nitrogen-fixing bacteria. So these bacteria actually perform the process of nitrogen fixation, we can say. And nitrogen fixation means what? They are actually converting atmospheric nitrogen into ammonia, right? This is the first stage of nitrogen cycle known as nitrogen fixation. Now second stage is the stage of nitrification. Second stage is the stage of nitrification. And what it means, you should write down: conversion of ammonia into nitrite and further into nitrate and further into nitrate within soil. Conversion of ammonia NH3 into nitrite and further into nitrate within soil. This process is facilitated by Nitrobacter bacteria. This process is facilitated by Nitrobacter bacteria. Now third, you should write this particular formula based mechanism: ammonia to nitrite and again nitrite into nitrate. Third one is the stage of assimilation. Third stage of nitrogen cycle is the stage of assimilation. And it means in assimilation stage what happens actually. You can write down: assimilation of nitrate by plants from soil and formation of amino acid present within body of plants, right? This third stage is followed by next stage, and that next stage is known as the stage of ammonification. Fourth stage is ammonification. Fourth stage is the stage of ammonification. What it means, what this stage is, please write down. After the death of biotic component, after the death of biotic components, after the death of biotic components, comma, decomposition of their body takes place. Decomposition of their body takes place. Decomposition of their body takes place. Decomposition of their body takes place, and complex amino acid and complex amino acid decomposed into ammonia, decomposed into ammonia. Decomposed means what? Breaking down into simple form. And again, you must be very, very clear. This process of decomposition should take place where? Again, within soil, at the surface of earth, you can say. Now, what happens when formation of ammonia actually takes place? That ammonia now present within soil, and within soil only there is presence of another type of bacteria. They are known as pseudomonas. And what they perform actually, since you all know that whatever is the availability of ammonia within soil, that ammonia is being converted into nitrate, right? And these pseudomonas bacteria actually convert that nitrate organic compound into nitrogen gas. So conversion of nitrate to nitrogen gas is known as denitrification. And this denitrification process is facilitated or performed by pseudomonas bacteria, and this is considered as the last stage of nitrogen fixation. Because what is happening under denitrification? Again, nitrate is being converted into nitrogen gas, and nitrogen gas means what? It released back into its own reserve, which is atmosphere. But what you need to understand here, देखो ऐसा नहीं है कि पहले नाइट्रिफिकेशन होगा, नाइट्रिफिकेशन में नाइट्रोबैक्टर बैक्टीरियाज का रोल है, we written ना, and here we are saying कि denitrification is the last stage, and denitrification process is performed by pseudomonas bacteria. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि pseudomonas bacteria will wait and watch कि पहले नाइट्रिफिकेशन हो जाने दो, फिर जब हमारी बारी आएगी तो we will go for denitrification. All these processes are being performed in simultaneous basis. केवल पढ़ने के लिए हमने क्या कर दिया है कि इन्हें एक स्टेज का फॉर्म दे दिया है. मतलब ये मैं कहना चाहता हूं कि at a point of time the process of nitrification as well as denitrification, both these processes takes place at an identical point of time. But since we have to talk about any process in organized manner so that we can develop our own sense about that topic, that's why we are presenting all these activities in stage-wise format. And we started our discussion from fixation, then nitrification, assimilation, and after assimilation what? Ammonification and then denitrification. But ये ध्यान रखना, ऐसा नहीं है कि all these activities takes place in you can say in a very series manner, one by one. No, सारी एक्टिविटीज एक साथ परफॉर्म हो रही है हमारी नेचर में, बस पढ़ने का ये एक तरीका है हमने एक नंबर फॉर्मेटिंग कर दी, राइट? सो राइट डाउन दैट लास्ट स्टेज, डीनाइट्रिफिकेशन. Denitrification. What is denitrification? Please write. Please write in denitrification. Process of conversion of nitrate into nitrogen gas, which released back nitrogen gas, which released back towards atmosphere, which released back towards atmosphere, which released back towards atmosphere, which released back towards atmosphere. This process, this conversion of nitrate into nitrogen gas this conversion of nitrate into nitrogen gas is facilitated by Pseudomonas bacteria. Look here, P is silent. Pseudomonas bacteria. Pseudomonas bacteria. So it is about nitrogen cycle, and as I said during initial time scenario of my today's lecture, that carbon and nitrogen cycle are two most important content as far as nutrient cycle topic is concerned. Now if we have to talk about other sedimentary cycles. Sedimentary cycle means those cycles in which transferred nutrient has earth as natural reserve, such as calcium, sulfur and phosphorus cycle. All these sedimentary cycles are actually governed by common process, or you can say common mechanism. So we need to talk about those common mechanisms, and if we have to answer question related to any type of sedimentary cycle, we can use that content only, right? I'm verbally informing you all first about this particular mechanism. Look, if we talk about sedimentary cycle, it means ki reserve of nutrient is not atmosphere, rather it is surface of earth. Let's say if we have to talk about calcium cycle, so what is the natural reserve of calcium nutrient? Limestone, marble rocks, which are available over the surface of earth in form of rocks. This is the natural reserve of calcium nutrient. Similarly, when we talk about sulfur, so in geography, in physical geography, you will read about pyrite rocks. Pyrite rocks are the sources of iron and sulfur, right? Similarly, if we have to talk about phosphorus, phosphorus nutrient is present in phosphate rocks. Phosphate rocks are again means they are available on the surface of earth. So all these nutrients are present in form of rocks and minerals on the surface of earth. Now, since we have to talk about their transfer mechanism of these nutrients from their reserve to ecosystem, and again from ecosystem to their reserve. So this transfer mechanism of nutrients actually start with the phenomenon of weathering of rocks. Now I am not talking about gaseous cycle. I am talking about sedimentary cycle. And whether it is calcium or sulfate or phosphate cycle, any type of sedimentary cycle start with the process or phenomenon of what? Weathering of rocks. What is weathering? Look, there are two very close terms, weathering and erosion. वेदरिंग हमेशा रॉक की होती है जिसका फिजिकल शेप बहुत बड़ा होता है. वी कैन नॉट इमेजिन इरोजन ऑफ रॉक, बिकॉज इरोजन का मतलब होता है डिस्प्लेसमेंट फ्रॉम वन लोकेशन टू अदर लोकेशन, अनदर लोकेशन. So what is weathering? Weathering of rock means disintegration of rock, but at its in situ position, without any displacement, right? Now, what happens in weathering process? There are various responsible factors of weathering. You will read about it in your geography. Usually we talk about three types of weathering of rocks: physical weathering, chemical weathering, and mechanical weathering. Biological weathering. Physical weathering means what? Due to impact of temperature, winds, the inner bonds of rocks start weakening, and disintegration of that rocks into smaller particles takes place. Chemical weathering means what? Due to various natural phenomena such as wind factor, rainfall, various chemical reactions starts taking place within inner portion of rocks, and this weathering becomes possible, right? So all in all, weathering means what? That bigger rock is actually disintegrating into smaller particles, right? But you must be very, very clear. This weathering is not the process of an overnight game कि कुछ घंटे में weathering हो गई पूरे rock की. It is a very long process. It takes so many years, right? It is a very gradual process. But end result of weathering is what? That bigger rock has been converted into smaller particles. And since that particle has been formed from that bigger rock, it means that particle also consists the very nutrient which was present in that rock. Now, after weathering, another phenomenon takes place. That phenomenon is known as the phenomenon of erosion. Erosion of that smaller particle. Now, since that smaller particle is of very light weight, and it can be eroded with under the impact of various external factors like wind, flood, water movement. These are different factors of erosion. So what happens? The very rock which was present at its natural reserve location, that particular rock, and rock means that nutrient which is present within that rock, that nutrient actually transferred from its natural reserve into ecosystem, erosion की वजह से. अब जैसे ही वो इकोसिस्टम में गया वो वो न्यूट्रिएंट या वो स्मॉलर पार्टिकल, नाउ दैट पर्टिकुलर न्यूट्रिएंट विल बी, यू कैन से, यूटिलाइज्ड बाय autotrophs or producer components first, and again from producer to heterotrophs through feeding behavior, and there will be transfer of that nutrients across different trophic levels. What happened then? There will be death of biotic components, and after that decomposition takes place, and the end result of decomposition is what? कि various complex compounds of body starts disintegrating into their simpler form. Let's say कि we talk about bones. So bones are made up of what? Calcium carbonate, CaCO3. So CaCO3 means what? कैल्शियम है, कार्बन है और ऑक्सीजन है. तो डिकम्पोजिशन होगा, तो डिकम्पोजिशन का मतलब क्या? अगर मैं लेमैन लैंग्वेज में बताऊं, बिकॉज दिस इज नॉट द क्लास ऑफ केमिस्ट्री, सो लेमैन लैंग्वेज का मतलब क्या है? कैल्शियम अलग हो गया, कार्बन अलग हो गया, ऑक्सीजन अलग हो गया इन देयर एप्रोप्रिएट फॉर्म. So again that nutrient has been introduced in soil, and again that the very erosion of that soil takes place, क्योंकि soil भी तो स्मॉलर फाइनर पार्टिकल ही है, तो soil का भी तो इरोजन होगा, और वो soil इरोड होते हुए फिर अल्टीमेटली एक ऐसे लोकेशन पे पहुंचेगा जहां पर उस न्यूट्रिएंट का अपना नेचुरल रिजर्व है, और धीरे धीरे उस लोकेशन पर फिर वो न्यूट्रिएंट्स या वो सॉइल कलेक्ट होते जाएंगे, इकट्ठा होंगे, और एक लॉन्गर टाइम में फिर से वो रॉक के फॉर्मेशन में क्या होंगे? कन्वर्ट होंगे. तो जब भी आप सेडिमेंट्री साइकिल की बात करो, आई एम ओनली टॉकिंग अबाउट सेडिमेंट्री साइकिल, so you should not forget to mention these two phenomenons which guide the entire mechanism: weathering and erosion. Weathering and erosion, right? So you can write down the very brief content here. Please put heading mechanism of sedimentary cycle. It should be your heading. Mechanism of sedimentary cycle. Please put this heading. Mechanism of sedimentary cycle. It should be your heading, and please write mechanism of sedimentary cycle, and please write down the journey of sedimentary cycle. The journey of sedimentary cycle. The journey of sedimentary cycle start with the journey of sedimentary cycle start with the process of weathering, the process of weathering of rocks, weathering of rocks, in bracket rocks in bracket, which are the natural reserve of nutrients, which are the natural reserve of nutrients, which are the natural reserve of nutrients. For example, pyrite rock, Pyrite, pyrite rock is the source of sulfur and iron. Pyrite rock is the source of sulfur and iron nutrient. Bracket close. Bracket close. End result, full stop and continue. End result of weathering is disintegration of rock. End result of weathering is disintegration of rock into smaller particles at its in situ position. At its in situ position. In situ position means without any displacement. Without any displacement. जहाँ पे है वो रॉक वहीं पे है, वहीं पे उस रॉक का डिसइंटीग्रेशन हो रहा है. दिस इज कॉल्ड वेदरिंग. फ्रॉम नेक्स्ट लाइन, the process of weathering is followed by From next line, the process of weathering is followed by the process of weathering is followed by the process of weathering is followed by erosion of smaller particles of rock under the influence of erosion of smaller particles of rocks under the influence of various external factors under the influence of various external factors like under the influence of various external factors like wind, water, etc. Again from next line, through erosion, comma, through erosion of smaller particles of rock, ऐसे लिखो, through erosion of smaller particles of rock, through erosion of smaller particles of rock, comma, nutrients got introduced into ecosystem and with the help of feeding behavior of biotic components with the help of feeding behavior of biotic components comma, it transferred across trophic levels of ecosystem, across trophic level of ecosystem. Right? From next line, after decomposition of dead body of living components, after decomposition of dead body of living components, comma, complex organic compound form of nutrient nutrients in bracket, for example CaCO3, calcium carbonate, bracket close, disintegrate into simple form and again through erosion of soil these nutrients transferred back towards their original reserve. So it is all about the very brief content about sedimentary cycle, and with this we have finished the discussion regarding nutrient transfer, and it was all about the function of ecosystem. Again, I must say, I am not saying that these are the only two functions of ecosystem. These two functions, which are transfer of energy and transfer of, these two functions can be considered as primary function of any ecosystem, which actually ensure the survival of that given ecosystem. And how these two functions used to be performed, what is the mechanism of these two functions, we discuss both these aspects in very elaborate manner. And now if you want, you can practice few descriptive questions based on this particular content. You can attempt. Please write down those questions. Along with explaining the concept of ecosystem, comma, discuss its structure and function. Discuss its structure and function. Question mark. 250 words. Word limit of answer is 250 words. एक और लिखो. An ecosystem is the functional and structural unit of biosphere. Functional and structural unit of biosphere. Functional and structural unit of biosphere. Full stop. Critically analyze this statement. In with suitable examples. 200 words. Now please drop your pen and listen one of my suggestion. Are you practicing mains questions these days or not? Okay. Now, as per you, what are three most important requirements for writing a very good answer of descriptive question? As far as this UPSC examination is concerned, I should dedicate few time over answer writing. What do you think? As per you, what are those three basic requirements? But these requirements should be very, very essential for writing a very decent answer of any question. What do you think? You used to write answers of question in your schooling days also, in your graduation also. So you are not doing a very new thing. So try to answer this question by taking the reference of your past experience. You can. Introduction, body, okay. and last portion is of conclusion. So these are the three requirements, basic requirements. Okay, any other suggestion? What do you think? Okay. What is first dimension, as he said, to analyze the question. Okay, then very good. To frame the very structure of this and of the answer in your own imagination, ki how you are going to present yourself. Very good. And third, chalo. Look, to maintain yourself within the limit of the very demand of question. Very, I can say, practical and very justifiable answer given by this candidate. What correct and decent answer means in your general studies paper, the very answer which satisfy these three characters. Look, I can say कि in any of your answer related to GS, I am not talking about optional, evaluators usually try to make themselves satisfy regarding 3 to 4 key features which should be there in answer. And if they notice those features, they will surely provide a very good mark. First, that answer should not talk unwarranted informations which were not asked in question. Right? That answer should only talk about that information which is relevant for the very demand of raised question. Now, this statement which I raised seems like a very common type of information. You may have this sense about this statement ki what's new in it. Every answer have to be written in the consonance of the demand of question. So what's new thing I'm providing to all of you? It is my experience, and whatever I'm going to say is the statement which I am raising based on my own experience of teaching, as well as I can say the experience of my own journey of preparation. The most important challenge which you are going to face in your entire journey of answer writing shall be this challenge only. Which one? Ki whether your answer is within limit of demand of question or not. Many a time you will find yourself into a very peculiar type of situation ki you start your answer by thinking some specific aspect. You start writing answer, and what you are found ki you are about to complete your answer, and randomly you think any other required aspect which should be there in that particular answer. But now you does not have sufficient space to write that random aspect into to add that random aspect into your answer. And this would be a very regular problem which you are going to face in your entire journey of answer writing. And I must say ki why this is a very important challenge for all of you, because UPSC has two very clear demand for a very good answers of general studies. First, that answer should be specific, it should be precise as much as possible, and that answer should not talk any unwarranted, that answer should not consist any unwarranted information which has not been asked in question. These are the two very clear question, you can say, requirement of UPSC. But अभी अगर ये जो मैंने दो क्वेश्चंस दिए हैं, अगर मैं अभी कहूं कि इसका आंसर लिखो, I can claim कि 90% among of you will follow this same mistake. Your answer will not be in the consonance of actual demand of question, and you will start talking so many other issues or informations which are not the actual demand of question. They are unwarranted type of thing. And why we used to do this particular mistake, I can say very frequently, because we have been, you can say, we were living in this particular type of atmosphere in our, I can say, in our society for around half to 2 decades. We spent our lifestyle for around 15 to 20 years in this type of atmosphere only, because what is the culture of Indian schooling system or Indian graduation, or I can say college system? You are writing your answer in your exam, and let's say कि one colleague is sitting behind you or in adjacent to you, he is also or she is also writing his or her exam, and you are writing your answer in A copy, and along with you, your colleague is demanding B copy, C copy, D copy, and you are noticing him. So this is the common culture of Indian student कि we start questioning ourselves कि यार वो तो B copy भी ले लिया, C copy भी ले लिया, D copy भी लेके आंसर लिख रहा, मतलब कि कितना जानता है, और मैं तो अभी तक A copy पे ही अटका हुआ हूँ. A B C copy का कल्चर है नहीं उड़ीसा में, है ना स्कूलिंग डेज में? तो it used to be our normal subject of suspicion na, and we start judging ourselves, and we spent our 15 to 20 years of life in this ecosystem only. तो उस इकोसिस्टम की ये चीज हमारे पूरे माइंडसेट में डेवलप हो चुकी है अच्छे से, और वो चीज कैसी है कि जितना ज्यादा लिखो उतना बढ़िया है. अब जितना ज्यादा का मतलब क्या है कि whatever you are knowing about a given subject, you try to vomit it out in your answer without thinking about the actual demand of question कि whether it has been asked or not. मतलब आपने क्वेश्चन में इकोसिस्टम देखा नहीं कि शुरू पूरा का पूरा कंटेंट आपने तुरंत कॉपी पेस्ट करना शुरू किया. आपने ना आंसर की कभी ड्राफ्टिंग पे सोचा, ना आंसर के स्ट्रक्चर पे कभी सोचा. And you can imagine कि you need to come out of this behavior, and for this departure, available time with you is of only few months. अगर प्री क्रैक कर लिए तो कुछ महीनों में आप मेंस लिखने वाले हो, और 15-20 साल की अपनी आदत को आपको छोड़ना है, उसके लिए टाइम आपके पास कितना है? Only few months. It is the matter of behavior, habit. और इस चीज का आपको आइडिया तब लगेगा कि ये कितनी बड़ी प्रॉब्लम आपकी है जब आप सही मायनों में आंसर लिखना शुरू करोगे. क्योंकि 99% क्राउड इस एग्जाम की तो वो रेस से बाहर में मानता हूं उस क्राउड को, 99% क्राउड को. That crowd does not deserve for this examination. And why I am saying so? Because 99% crowd only try to read books for cracking this examination. They never want to start writing. This is not in their behavior. And if it is not in your behavior, if you are being forced by someone else for writing answer, I can say you are wasting your time in this examination. It should be your own call to start writing. And writing means what? You need to develop your, I can say, expertise over 3 to 4 basic requirement of, I can say, a decent answer writing of GS paper. First, First trait which you need to do, which you need to learn is what? As he said, before writing answer, you need to have a very careful look over question. And careful look means what? You need to be attentive for each and every word which is there in question. I am using the term very intentionally, word, right? अभी जैसे जैसे टाइम बीतेगा वैसे वैसे मैं दिखाऊंगा कि वर्ड गेम क्या कहलाता है. इंफॉर्मेशन वही है, वही चीज लिखनी है. क्वेश्चन की वर्डिंग्स को चेंज करके आपकी पूरी ड्राफ्टिंग को मैं चेंज करवा सकता हूं, वही चीज लिखनी है. So you need to be very, very attentive about what? Words. Second, you need to develop this habit ki whatever is the order of demand in question, your answer should also be in that order only, in that flow only. Let's say ki information A, B and C has been asked in a single question, but in which order? Initially demand A is being mentioned, then B and then C. So your answer should also in that order only. Ki first you need to talk about A, then B and then C. It should be like this. And third dimension which I want to add here is that you need to present yourself in as much as possible simple and flexible manner while writing answer. You should not be very, very sophisticated. Simple manner means what? Your answer looks like a very, very generalized type of answer which can be read by anyone. And why it is a very important requirement? You are not trying the exam of PhD scholar. Here you are writing answer for cracking the exam of bureaucracy. And what should be art of a bureaucrat? A bureaucrat have to deal an illiterate person of his district as well as the most literate person of that same district. So that bureaucrat should have character. His communication should be like that. It would be easy to grasp for illiterate person also as well as literate person. That's why it is essential that you need to present yourself in a very simple and a very flexible format. Flexible format means what? Your answer should not be very, very, I can say, boring. So in order to make your answer very smart and I can say easy to grasp, you should present yourself in point format. If possible, you need to present yourself with the help of flow chart, diagram. These are the requirements of general studies answer, right? So as far as the very initial journey of our answer writing is concerned, as of now, I should suggest these three requirements. You need to develop these habits. Now we should talk about the very next topic of this chapter, that is ecological interaction. All have come? Huh? Sure. Look, as we all know that ecosystem actually consists variety of biotic components, and all biotic components have diverse range of requirements, and for satisfying their requirements of life, those biotic components used to, you can say, exploit, or they use or they utilize various other, you can say, components of that given ecosystem. So other components of ecosystem can be considered as a resource for a living component, because that living component is utilizing those other components for its own requirement, right? So we can consider them as a resource for that given living entity. But when we try to look at the very mechanism of this utilization, we can say that a particular entity, in fact living entity, is trying to interact with any other entity of that given ecosystem. Utilization of that resource can also be discussed in this manner, that there is interaction taking place between two different entities. When we talk about interaction, so every interaction demands at least two participants, yes or no? Every interaction demands at least two participants, and we can imagine multiple possible influence of that interaction over both these participants. Multiple possible influence means what? Let's say that it may be possible that due to that interaction, one participant is getting benefit, but other participant is actually suffering loss. It may be possible. This is one possible type of influence. It also may be possible that due to interaction between two different entities, both are getting benefit. It also may be possible. So as far as the influence of interaction between two different entities are concerned, we can imagine multiple types of possible influence of that interaction over participant entities, right? Since we are talking about influence, since we are talking about what? Influence of that interaction. So in order to make a very proper discussion about this influence of interaction, it is very, very essential for us to consider both these participants as living component of ecosystem. Because the very discussion about positive or negative influence can be conducted for whom? For living components, because they feel that influence in terms of benefit or in terms of loss. That's why I am assuming that the very discussion about that influence of interaction should be performed or should be conducted in reference of two living components, and we will assume that both these living components are interacting with each other, and what would be possible influence of that interaction over them. This is the very tagline of our discussion, right? As I said, this interaction may have different types of influence upon these participants. So by looking at the manner of influence, and influence of what? Influence of interaction. Over whom? Over both these participants of that interaction. By looking at the very manner of this influence, we should provide some specific name to those different types of interaction. Let's say that there is one specific interaction between living entity A and living entity B. And what is happening in that interaction? We are noticing that both these participants are getting benefit of that interaction. So we would provide one specific name for that interaction, and you have to memorize these nomenclatures. If there is a win-win type of, you can say, situation for both these participants in a given interaction. That type of interaction is known as what? Mutualism. So in this manner, I am going to present the cases of different types of interaction, and what is the manner of our analysis. What should be ki which type of interaction has which type of influence upon participants, right? So if there is a mutualistic interaction between A and B, it means ki both are getting benefit of that interaction. One example, let's say ki interaction between you and me. We are interacting with each other, and what is the end result of this interaction? Both are getting benefit. You are able to serve your own purpose, and I am able to serve my own purpose. So this type of interaction can be considered as an example of what? Mutualism. Now, one example by giving the reference of ecology. Recently, we talked about plant-based bacteria. So try to consider the interaction between that plant and that bacteria. Which type of interaction is taking place? Both are satisfying the requirement of each one. Plant is providing the habitat for that bacteria, and that bacteria is providing the food or nutrients to that plant. So that type of interaction will be treated as what? Mutualism. So in this manner, we have to talk about different types of interaction, and you need to be familiar about the end result of that interaction for both these participants in a specific manner, right? So please start writing. We can assume multiple types of ecological interaction. We can assume multiple types of ecological interaction. And their influence upon participant biotic component, full stop. Based on the parameter, full stop and continue. Based on the parameter of the nature of influence upon participant of interaction, comma, we can talk about three types of ecological interaction. First one is symbiotic interaction. You will read this term very frequently in your geography and ecology. For so many, you can say, physical structures, authors use this name ki this structure is due to symbiotic interaction between A and B. Probably you may be familiar about coral reef structure. So for that coral reef, authors used to say ki that coral reef is the product or end result of symbiotic interaction between coral and reefs, right? So this is symbiotic. I will explain it. And for symbiotic interaction, please write in this type of interaction, comma, at least one participant must be influenced in positive manner, in bracket. Positive manner means what? Benefit. There must be benefit for at least one participant. This is the parameter of which type of interaction? Symbiotic. Look, for the sake of simplicity, what I am going to do, look, for positive influence or for benefit, I will use the symbol of plus, right? For negative influence, or if someone is facing loss due to that interaction, I will use the symbol of minus. And for neutral impact, neither benefit nor loss, I will use the symbol of 0, right? So symbiotic interaction is what? At least one party. Since we are talking about interaction, every interaction involves how many participants? 2 participants. So what is the criteria of symbiotic interaction? At least one party must feel that positive influence out of that interaction. It may be possible कि दोनों को भी benefit हो, but parameter क्या है कि कम से कम एक को benefit होना चाहिए, और ऐसे interaction को हम नाम देते हैं क्या? Symbiotic. Now there are few variants of symbiotic interaction. You can continue. There are following variants of symbiotic interaction. There are following variants of symbiotic interaction: mutualism and commensalism. Mutualism and commensalism. Now, what is the parameter of mutualism? Both participants must be positively influenced out of that interaction. Mutualism means what? If due to that reaction both participants are getting benefit, that interaction should be treated as what? Mutualism or mutualistic interaction. Both participants must be positively influenced. Look, I am giving this task to all of you because it is not possible to dictate a limited number of examples of such different interactions. Every interaction would have countless number of examples. You just need to take the help of internet and try to consider or try to pick at least 3 examples of every interaction. In my classroom discussion also, I will present 1 or 2 different examples. As I talked about mutualism, recently I gave the example of leguminous plant and bacteria. That is one example of mutualism, right? By why? Because both are getting benefit out of that interaction. Look, if we talk about mutualism, this mutualism interaction also has its 2 different variants, or you can say that there are 2 types of mutualism. Add on. there are two types of mutualism. Obligate and facultative. Obligate and facultative. There are two types of mutualism, obligate and facultative. Look, if there is obligate mutualism type of interaction establishes between two different biotic components, it means ki you can explain that term. Obligate mutualism means what? Survival of one participant is not possible without other. And facultative means what? Just opposite. One participant can survive without other participant. Facultative means what? One participant can survive without other participant. Look, whether it is obligate or facultative, here we are talking about mutualism only. So it means कि both participants are getting benefit of that interaction. There should not be any scope of doubt in this conclusion. If there is obligate mutualism between two different parties or two different biotic component, it means that both are getting benefit of that interaction, and if you exclude one participant, survival of other would be in threat. And delicate example is nothing but that same example, leguminous plant and bacteria. If you try to dissociate or detach that bacteria from such plants, their survival will be in threat. They cannot survive without that particular plant. Similarly, the example of coral reef is again an example of obligate mutualism. But there is possibility of so many specific type of mutualistic case where we can expect the survival of one participant without interacting other one. For example, when we talk about interaction between flower and honeybee, flower and honeybee interaction is again an example of mutualistic interaction. Both are serving their own purpose. But we can expect survival of honeybee without particular that flower, right? So that would be case of what? Facultative interaction, right? तो इसमें बस नाम देखो, ट्रिक कैसे याद करोगे? ऑब्लिगेट मतलब ऑब्लिगेशन, some type of burden. So burden means what? Ki survival of one would be in threat without other, right? So it is all about mutualism. And since you are noticing कि in mutualism both participants are getting benefit, that's why we can consider it as the part of symbiotic interaction. Another one is commensalism. Another variant of symbiotic interaction is commensalism. What it means? Write down. One participant is being benefited from that interaction. One participant is being benefited or is getting benefit out of that interaction, is being benefited from that interaction, and other one is neutral. Another one is neutral. Can you suggest me any example of commensalism type of interaction? where one participant is getting benefit of that interaction, but another participant is in neutral condition, neither benefit nor loss. And I'm giving you option ki it is not required कि आप ecology का ही कोई example दो. You can take up the case of your day-to-day life if you can. Let's say there is one colleague of you and that colleague was not present in previous lecture. So very next day he is demanding your copy for taking the very printout of yesterday's lecture. So there is interaction taking place between that candidate and you, means the colleague and that particular aspirant. And what is the end result of that interaction? जो colleague previous day नहीं था उसको previous lecture का content मिल गया. It means कि getting benefit. And what is the case for other colleague who was actually present in previous lecture? Neither getting benefit nor getting loss. Neutral condition है उसकी. उससे उसकी copy किसी ने मांगी, उसने अपनी copy दे दी बस. तो ये कैसा interaction हो रहा है? Commensalism. Now one ecology oriented example. You may be familiar about one marine creature known as barnacle. हिंदी में उनको सीप कहते हैं. ऑर्नामेंट इंडस्ट्री में भी उनका एक बहुत अच्छा खासा यूज है. Barnacle. These barnacle are non-moving creature, marine creature, non-moving. They does not have capacity to move or swim. And they used to settle at a particular location on the surface of, you can say, sea, you can say in entire ecosystem. But since they are living component, so they feel the requirement of energy. So the very source of energy for them is what? Water current of ocean and dissolved nutrients in that particular water current. But since these barnacles are actually settled on the floor of ocean, so exposure with those dissolved nutrients is not very sufficient for these barnacles because they are settled on the floor of ocean. So in order to enhance the exposure with nutrients, what barnacle do actually? They try to deposit themselves on the body of very large creature, moving creature, such as shark or whale, right? But these shark or these whales are moving creatures. They used to swim across the ocean. And when these barnacles got deposited over their body, what happens? Along with the movement of these large creatures, barnacle also got exposure of very sufficient quantum of water nutrients. And it actually, you can say, enhance their, you can say, lifestyle or life form or shelf life. And in YouTube, if you will search, you will notice or you will be able to watch so many videos where entire body of that whale or ship is become full of those deposited barnacles. फिर जो एक्टिविस्ट वगैरह लोग होते हैं उनका यही काम होता है कि फिर ऐसे जो भी कुछ वेल या बड़ी क्रिएचर ऐसा दिखता है जिसकी पूरी बॉडी पे ये बर्नेकल्स डिपोजिटेड हो गए होते हैं, फिर उनको वो लोग निकालते हैं. दे यूज टू क्लीन देयर बॉडी एंड अगेन ट्रांसफर दैट क्रिएचर इनटू ओशियन. So what is the manner of interaction between barnacle and that fish? Try to understand it. Barnacle is getting benefit of that interaction or not? And what is that benefit? What is that benefit? Large exposure with nutrients. But there is no any benefit and no any loss for that large creature, that is ship. So that would be classic example of what? Commensalism. Right? So again in commensalism you are noticing that one participant is getting benefit. That's why commensalism is the subset of symbiotic interaction. Now this was the first type of interaction. Second interaction is known as commensalism. One was symbiotic, having two variants, mutualism and commensalism. Now we are talking about commensalism. Commensalism. In this type of interaction, what is the end result of commensalism? In this type of interaction, one participant faces loss and other participant is found to be neutral. Here you should write one example because it is a very unique type of interaction. So in order to appreciate this content, you should write at least one example here. Interaction between large tree and insects. Large tree and insects which reside around the root of that tree. Full stop. Physical growth of, full stop and continue. Physical growth of tree is its natural process. Physical growth of tree is its natural process. Physical growth of tree is its natural process. But due to it, habitat of insects got destroyed. Means they are facing or witnessing loss. Look what happens actually. These insects used to reside along or around the root of tree within soil. And with respect to physical growth of tree, its root also expanded under the surface of soil. And due to expansion of root, the habitat of insect got destroyed, right? And this particular process of physical growth of tree, or you can say expansion of root of tree, is its natural process. But what is happening due to this natural process? जो insects के habitat है वो destroy हो रहा है. It means when you the interaction between that tree and insect, you can say कि insect is witnessing loss, and what is the condition of tree? It is neutral condition. So this is all about what? Commensalism. And one third type of interaction is known as competition. And what is the end result of competition? Both participants witness loss from that interaction. both are in the condition of loss, both participants. Now you may surprise with this particular comment ki how it is possible. Look, first of all, you need to answer few of my question. What you think ki competition should be there between those entities who are looking for some different requirement or ambition, or whether that competition should be between those entities who are looking for identical objective. Competition should be there in which case? Is there any competition between me and you? Competition is among you, na? And why? Because you all are looking for a common purpose, right? Common purpose means what? Requirement is common, requirement is same. So you must be very, very clear about competition interaction, ki this interaction is possible between those, you can say, biotic components who are looking for common requirement. Let's say tiger and lion, they are looking for, let's say, herbivore, right? So since both the participants are looking for a common requirement, so we can say कि जो कॉमन रिक्वायरमेंट है जिसके लिए वो दोनों पार्टिसिपेंट्स एक दूसरे के साथ compete कर रहे हैं, हम ये कह सकते हैं कि ड्यू टू दिस कंपटीशन availability of that common requirement has been reduced for both these participants. Try to imagine the condition कि अगर उन दोनों में से एक ना हो तो रिमेनिंग के लिए तो पूरी की पूरी जो रिक्वायरमेंट की अवेलेबिलिटी है वो 100% हो गई, लेकिन दूसरे पार्टिसिपेंट के होने, कंपटीटर की होने की वजह से एंड रिजल्ट कैसा आ रहा है कि उस कॉमन रिक्वायरमेंट की अवेलेबिलिटी दोनों के लिए क्या हो रही है? कम हो रही है. एंड सिंस अवेलेबिलिटी इज reducing for both these participants, we are using this notion कि both are in the condition of loss. And what happened due to this type of interaction in longer term? Since availability of common requirement has been reduced for both these competitors, so they will start fighting with each other. Why they will start fighting? In order to maximize the availability of that requirement for themselves. दोनों को चाहिए होगा, तो इसके लिए दोनों अब एक दूसरे के साथ क्या करना शुरू करेंगे? फाइट, compete करना शुरू करेंगे. And in longer term, what will happen? One will gain victory, and victorious participant will enjoy the entire availability of that requirement or resource, whatever it is. तो competitive और competition interaction का longer term में अगर आप रिजल्ट देखो तो उस longer term में रिजल्ट को कुछ यूं हम समझ सकते हैं कि out of these two competitors, one will enjoy victory and another one will excluded from that interaction. वो पूरी स्टोरी से ही क्या होगा? गायब होगा. कौन? जो उस कंपटीशन में हार चुका है. And this is known as competitive exclusion theory. Competitive exclusion theory, which says that कि if two participants have competitive interaction between themselves, in longer term, there will be you can say 0% chance of survival of at least one participant who will in the condition of loss. And as far as other participant is concerned, that participant will enjoy the very condition of victory. और जो भी victorious participant होगा वो पूरी की पूरी उस requirement को avail करेगा, वो उसका privilege हो जाएगा. So this competition interaction must be approached in a very context कि this is possible for, you can write down, this interaction is possible between those biotic components who are looking for any common requirement. If I say competition type of interaction is possible between two biotic components of same trophic level, what should be your take? Is it correct or incorrect statement? Competition type of interaction is possible between two biotic components of same trophic level. Can you consider it as a correct statement or incorrect? Very simple question. It is a correct statement. Because if two biotic components belongs to same trophic level, it means here examiner is trying to say that both are having common requirement, at least in terms of feeding behavior. And in that context, you can say that there is possibility of competition between both these components, right? So you can also add on this information. नोट करके या एक नेक्स्ट पॉइंट फॉर्म करके लिख लो. We can expect competition type of interaction between two different biotic components of same trophic level. Two different biotic components of same trophic level. So it is all about competition. Extremely sorry, I forget to mention one more variant of symbiotic interaction. Actually, symbiotic interaction has three variants. मैंने केवल दो बताया था ना, ये ऐड कर लो. Extremely sorry. Symbiotic interaction is not having you can say only two types, but it is having three different variants. एक और लिखो जो symbiotic का ही example है. That is known as predation. Predation is third type of symbiotic interaction. Predation is third type of symbiotic only. Symbiotic के में ही ये point कहीं ऐड कर लो. Predation. And what happened in this type of interaction? Plus and minus. समझ पा रहे हो इसका क्या मतलब है? One is getting benefit and another one is in loss, right? Predation means what? एक को फायदा दूसरे को नुकसान, right? अब इसमें एक चीज और ध्यान रखना. Again, you can suggest countless number of examples of this interaction. For example, the interaction between rabbit and snake. If snake will colonize the habitat of rabbit, so what is happening? Predation type of interaction is taking place between rabbit and snake because availability of habitat for that snake has been ensured, and for rabbit his habitat has been destroyed, means loss. Similarly, when you talk about tiger, if let's say कि tiger is feeding goat, so there is interaction taking place between tiger and goat. for tiger plus symbol and for goat minus. But try to make the very difference between these two cases. As far as first example is concerned, one is suffering loss, another one is in benefit, and same conclusion for the second case also. But as far as first case is concerned, survival of this element is being maintained even after loss. इसको लॉस तो रैबिट को हो रहा है लेकिन इसका सर्वाइवल अभी भी मेंटेन्ड है. बट व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इन केस नंबर 2? द वेरी कंपोनेंट विच इज इन लॉस द इज एक्चुअली डेड, राइट? जिसको लॉस हो रहा है उसकी डेथ हो जा रही है इन दिस सेकेंड केस. So this second case is also a predation type of interaction, but we should use another name for that case. कि if a party or if a participant is actually in the condition of death due to interaction, that interaction is also known as parasitism. What? Parasitism. Predation and parasitism. These are two very close terms, right? Predation, whether we are talking about predation or we are talking about parasitism, दोनों का एंड रिजल्ट कॉमन होगा. क्या होगा? एक को फायदा, दूसरे को नुकसान. बस अगर जिसको नुकसान हो रहा है उसकी डेथ हो जा रही है तो उस केस में हम ये टर्म यूज करेंगे कि देयर इज अ पैरासाइटिज्म टाइप ऑफ इंटरेक्शन. और कभी कभी होता है क्या है कि ये दोनों वर्ड्स को ऑथर्स एक साथ इंटरचेंजेबल मैनर में यूज करते हैं. तो आप चाहो तो प्रिडेशन ऑब्लिक पैरासाइटिज्म दोनों टर्म लिख सकते हो. प्रिडेशन ऑब्लिक पैरासाइटिज्म एंड रिजल्ट इज कॉमन फॉर both these interactions. Now you should write down few factual informations which are important for your prelims point of view. Please write down mutualism comma mutualism and commensalism. Mutualism and commensalism type of interaction. Mutualism and commensalism type of interaction are possible between two organisms of same species, between two organisms of same species, but as far as competition comma commensalism and predation interaction are concerned predation oblique parasitism, commensalism type of interaction are concerned, they are not possible between two organisms of same species, वेट, मैं फिर से शुरू कर रहा हूं, इसको सुनना और देखना कि क्या अगर कुछ इसमें मिस्टेक हुई है क्या. कंपटीशन, सॉरी, म्यूचुअलिज्म, commensalism, लिखे हो. Mutualism and commensalism is possible between two organisms of same species. यही लिखे हो ना. इसमें competition भी ऐड करो. It is also possible. Let's say lion and lion, two different lions, they can fight for a common requirement. So competition, mutualism and commensalism is possible between two organisms of same species, right? Only commensalism and predation. As far as commensalism and predation are concerned, these interactions are not possible between two organisms of same species. Is it okay for all of you? I'm repeating it for last time. Commensalism, competition and mutualism is possible between two organisms of same species. But commensalism and predation interaction is not possible between two organisms of same species. So it is all about this topic known as ecological interaction. I must say that this topic is full of fact and theory. There is no any scope of making conceptual discussion here. You just need to memorize these terms and their end result. Sometimes they used to ask this type of question, कि they give the very pair, mutualism plus minus, or facultative, let's say कि commensalism minus plus, and they will raise question कि which pair is correct. So you need to develop this particular informative capacity actually about ecological interaction. Now, what we have been discussed so far, try to think about it. We initiated our discussion from the very basic aspect of ecosystem. What ecosystem is, we talked about it. Ecosystem is a functional and structural unit of biosphere, so and so. Then we talked about the structure of ecosystem in a very Platonic manner, followed by function of ecosystem, two important function, energy transfer and nutrient transfer. And then we tried to have a discussion regarding different manner of interaction which is possible between two components of a given ecosystem. Now we should also talk about another very interesting facet of discussion related to ecosystem only, कि from yesterday onwards we are repeatedly taking up this terminology of ecosystem, but we can also think about the very dimension of investigation, कि how formation of ecosystem takes place at any given location. Let's say कि if we are noticing a very dense forest ecosystem, तो ऐसा तो होगा नहीं कि वो केवल एक पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम पे ही इवॉल्व हो चुका होगा. हर एक लोकेशन पर इकोसिस्टम का फॉर्मेशन कह लो या इवोल्यूशन कह लो, उसकी अपनी एक जर्नी होती है, और उस पूरी जर्नी को भी हम डिस्कस कर सकते हैं कि कैसे एक इकोसिस्टम धीरे धीरे इवॉल्व हुआ होगा एक लोकेशन पे. The entire journey of ecosystem formation, or you can say the ecosystem evolution at any given location, is popularly known as ecological succession. What? Ecological succession. And this ecological succession is a very gradual and organic process of ecosystem development, right? But you will find different types of definitions about this ecological succession term in different textbooks. First of all, I should present that particular, I can say, demonstration, with the help of which we can say that all these differently written definitions are providing the common message. How so? Look, try to focus over this term ecosystem. An ecosystem is getting its relevance especially due to the presence of living component, because if there is presence of only a biotic component without any presence of biotic component at a given location, it cannot be considered as an ecosystem. So living components are provide the very uniqueness, or you can say importance, to any ecosystem. So if the subject of our discussion is कि whether a given ecosystem is a very simple or a very plain ecosystem, or that given ecosystem is a mature ecosystem, if we have to talk about it, we need to focus over the very structure of whom? Living components. कल की क्लास में मैंने बताया था ना कि why we are not talking much about desert ecosystem. I'm taking up that same logic here. So if we have to talk about the level of an ecosystem, our entire focus should be upon the structure of these living components. If there is variety in biotic components within a given ecosystem, we will say it is a developed ecosystem. And if there is problem on the front of number or variety in biotic components, we will say that given ecosystem is not mature, it is a simple or plain ecosystem. So if you go with this logic, you can say evolution of ecosystem, any ecosystem, is actually guided by the very process of what? You can say increase in number and variety of what? Increase in number and variety of what? Living components. You can say na, this is the meaning of this term evolution of ecosystem. And increase in number or variety of living component, this entire statement can also be rewrite as what? This entire information can also be rewrite as what? Positive change. Change, the very notion of change is bidirectional. Change may be positive, it may be negative. But since we are talking about the case of increment here, that's why the very term of increment can also be represented as what? Positive change. Increase term की बजाय मैं क्या term लिख सकता हूँ? Positive change, बात एक ही कही जा रही है ना? So we can say that this written statement is nothing but positive change in species structure. इसी बात को ऐसे भी तो कह सकते हो ना, increase in number and variety of living components means what? Positive change in species structure of that given ecosystem. अब पॉजिटिव चेंज का मतलब क्या हुआ? यहां पे हम क्या देख रहे हैं कि नंबर और वैरायटी इंक्रीज कर रहा है, यही हम देख रहे हैं ना. तो उसी इंक्रीज टर्म को हम एक तरीके से ऐसे भी डिनोट कर सकते हैं. तो व्हाट इज इकोलॉजिकल सक्सेशन? You have three different options to present or define that term now. What is ecological succession? Either you can say ecological succession is the process of evolution or development of ecosystem in a given duration of a time, or you can also say ecological succession refers to the process of increase in number and variety of living components. और इसी बात को आप ऐसे भी कह सकते हो कि इकोलॉजिकल सक्सेशन इज द प्रोसेस ऑफ पॉजिटिव चेंज इन स्पीशीज स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ अ गिवन इकोसिस्टम. बिकॉज लिविंग कंपोनेंट का मतलब क्या हुआ? स्पीशीज। अरे हमने जो नंबरिंग की थी तो ये स्पीशीज का जो फेज था वो लिविंग कंपोनेंट के लिए ही तो हमने डिस्कस किया था ना। तो दिस टर्म लिविंग कंपोनेंट कैन आल्सो बी रिप्लेस्ड एज अ स्पीशीज स्ट्रक्चर। आपके दिमाग में अगर और डाउट चल रहा है कि वाई स्पीशीज ओनली, वाई नॉट कम्युनिटी, तो ये भी लिख लो कम्युनिटी स्ट्रक्चर, ये भी कह सकते हो। सो व्हाट इट इज अप टू यू, and if you have understanding about all this aspect, there is no any requirement to memorize these definitions in line by line manner. ये आप अपने से derive कर सकते हो कि पॉजिटिव चेंज इन कम्युनिटी स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ बायोटिक कंपोनेंट ऐसे कह दो, या ये कह दो कि इकोलॉजिकल सक्सेशन इज द प्रोसेस ऑफ पॉजिटिव चेंज इन स्पीशीज स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ इकोसिस्टम, बात वही कह रहे हो। या इसी बात को ऐसे भी कह दो, इंक्रीज इन द नंबर एंड वेराइटी ऑफ लिविंग कंपोनेंट्स ऑफ इकोसिस्टम, या इन सारी बातों को ऐसे कह दो कि इकोलॉजिकल सक्सेशन इज द प्रोसेस ऑफ evolution or development of ecosystem. Few textbook consider this definition, few textbook consider this definition. अब लोग इस पचड़े में फंसते हैं कि which one is correct. All these statements are correct on their part. केवल मैटर किस चीज में है, वर्ड्स का, कौन से वर्ड को चूज करके कौन कैसे डेफिनेशन तैयार कर रहा है, राइट? So we have to talk about this entire process of evolution of ecosystem in a very depth manner. Initially we should write that definition. Please write down what is ecological succession. Ecological succession. It is a gradual process of positive change noticed in species structure, or community structure of an ecosystem, species structure or community structure of an ecosystem, species structure and community structure of an ecosystem during long duration of time full stop. From next line, ecological succession can also be defined as the process of evolution oblique development of an ecosystem in a very long duration of time following from next line. Following factors influence following factors influence the process of ecological succession. Now again, we should wait here. Following factors affect the process of ecological succession dash. Now I am giving this task to you. Just try to think about those factors which influence the entire process of ecosystem development at any given location, and you can consider about those factors with your own effort. ये सब ऐसा कंटेंट नहीं है जो केवल आप कहीं पढ़ के ही लिखो या पढ़ो या समझो. You can sense about those factors with your own effort. ऐसे सोचो, किसी एक लोकेशन पर एक इकोसिस्टम को इवॉल्व होना है या डेवलप होना है. सो इकोसिस्टम को डेवलप होने का मतलब कि देयर मस्ट बी प्रेजेंस ऑफ बायोटिक कंपोनेंट्स देयर. हाउ दिस प्रेजेंस शुड बी फुलफिल्ड और हाउ दिस प्रेजेंस शुड बी एंश्योर्ड. Presence of biotic component. For the presence of biotic component, which type of conditions should be there? What should be condition of climate? Whether it should be very intense or it should be moderate. Moderate. So what the condition of climate is one such influencing factor. Write it down. First factor is what? Condition of climate. Second, physiographic condition. What is the condition of physiography? Physiographic condition means what? Whether that is a location of fertile land or whether it is a barren land, which type of land it is, what is the let's say shape of that land, whether it is mountainous land or plain land. So physiographic factors also affect or influence this process of evolution of ecosystem. One more, third one, various natural phenomenon such as earthquake, flood, etc. समझ पा रहे हो? These phenomena also have their influence upon this process, na? One more, anthropogenic factors also. Anthropogenic factors like industrialization, etc. So these are some major factors which actually influence the entire journey of ecosystem development at any given location. Now, when we try to observe the entire process of ecological succession, we can talk about this process in two different manners. Look, there are two different possibilities of ecological succession at any given location. First possibility of ecological succession would be that the evolution of ecosystem is taking place for the first time at that given location. This would be first possibility. Let's say volcanic eruption has been there and flow of magma and lava took place. After some time they solidified and barren land was created, right? Over that barren land there shall be, you can say, introduction of some pre-vegetative species initially, such as lichen and mosses. Those pre-vegetative species starts reacting with that barren land, and what they will do after reaction with that barren land, they try to convert that barren land as a fertile land, right? And along with that reaction, weathering of that barren land will also take place due to the effect of various natural factors. So after some time, we will notice the presence of some selective biotic components at that location, which was earlier completely a barren land. लोकेशन वही है जो इनिशियल डेज में बिल्कुल बैरेन था, अब एक टाइम के बाद वहां पे हम सेलेक्टिव ही सही कुछ वेजिटेटिव या कुछ बायोटिक कंपोनेंट्स का प्रेजेंस हमें वहां पे देखने को मिलेगा. व्हाट इज हैपनिंग if there is you can say presence of biotic component there, we can say कि ecosystem is developing at that location. Now what will happen further? These particular species will start modifying the outer climate and physiography of that location, and that modification in climate and physiographic location or condition will start supporting the life of so many other species, and other species will start introducing in that location after some time. तो एक टाइम के बाद अब क्या देखोगे कि कुछ समय पहले केवल 2 तरीके के स्पीशीज वहां पे थे, एक समय के बाद अब आपको देखेगा कि वहां पे नंबर ऑफ स्पीशीज बढ़ चुके हैं. तो नंबर ऑफ स्पीशीज के बढ़ने का क्या मतलब है? स्पीशीज स्ट्रक्चर इज इंक्रीजिंग, राइट? When there shall be presence of so many different types of species, we will say that ecosystem is maturing very gradually. And it is the case of ecological succession. So one possible way of ecological succession is what? Development or evolution of ecosystem is taking place at a location where there was no any presence of other ecosystem during previous days. This is the first possibility. And second possibility would be what? It is also possible at a given location there used to be presence of any older ecosystem before some time, and that older ecosystem was destroyed somehow, right? And again formation of new ecosystem starts taking place at that location. So ecological succession is all about formation of ecosystem. उस ecosystem के formation को ही तो हम succession कह रहे हैं ना. तो अब ये इकोसिस्टम का फॉर्मेशन दूसरी कंडीशन में कैसे हो रहा है कि एट दैट लोकेशन देयर यूज्ड टू बी प्रेजेंस ऑफ एन ओल्डर इकोसिस्टम एंड इट वाज डिस्ट्रॉयड, एंड अगेन आफ्टर सम टाइम a development of a new ecosystem starts taking place at that location. This is second possibility. So first possibility is known as primary succession. Primary succession means what? Evolution or development of ecosystem for the first time at that given location. And secondary succession means what? Earlier there used to be presence of an ecosystem, it was destroyed, and then formation of a new ecosystem is taking place at that location. This is known as secondary succession, right? Secondary succession. One very classic example of secondary succession would be what? Let's say there was a forest and forest fire took place, entire ecosystem has been burned out, and after some time tribal starts practicing farming there. So farming means what? Farmland is a new ecosystem. But location is same na. But at that same location, there used to be presence of a forest ecosystem. So it is all about two types of succession, primary and secondary succession. Please write. There are two types of ecological succession. There are two types of ecological succession. First one is primary succession. Primary succession. And what is primary succession? Please write down. Development or evolution of ecosystem. Development or evolution of an ecosystem for the first time. For the first time at any given location. At any given location. Full stop. Full stop. The journey of, full stop and continue. The journey of primary succession. The journey of primary succession starts with primary succession. The journey of primary succession starts with the formation of barren land. It starts with the formation of barren land or formation of an aquatic body. Full stop. There are following stages of primary succession. There are following stages of primary succession. First stage is known as the stage of nudation. What? Nudation. First stage of primary succession is the stage of nudation. What it means, you should write down. Formation of barren land. Formation of barren land due to any type of formation of barren land due to any type of natural activity or natural phenomenon, such as volcanic eruption. Natural phenomenon such as volcanic eruption. Right? Have you written about nudation? Complete, na? Okay. Then nudation is followed by invasion. Second stage is of invasion. What it means, write down. Invasion. Introduction of seeds. Introduction of seeds of different plants or seeds of different plants or introduction of various productive pre-vegetation species various productive pre-vegetation species such as lichen and mosses. Lichen and mosses. Full stop. These species work for conversion of that barren land into fertile soil. Work for conversion of that barren land into fertile soil. Full stop. After formation of soil, continue. After formation of soil, many other species starts invading there. Full stop. And last information in same paragraph, full stop, invading there, full stop, and continue. Those species which firstly colonize, colonize का मतलब क्या होता है? मतलब घर बना लेना, इन्वेड कर जाना, ठीक है? Firstly colonize that barren land are known as pioneer species. Are known as pioneer species. So, in the process of primary succession, lichen and mosses can be considered as what? Those pioneer species. They firstly colonize that location and starts creating favorable condition for other species, right? Look, these lichen and mosses are what? Pre-vegetation species. It means ki they starts creating the favorable condition for evolution of other vegetative species such as grass, plants, trees. So when we talk about mosses, they are actually a plant. They are actually a plant, but they have capacity to develop in a very extreme type of situation. अब सोचो कि barren land की मैं बात कर रहा हूँ, तो barren land होना मतलब ये extreme situation ही है ना? And they have capacity to develop even in the condition of barren land. That's why they are known as what? Pre-vegetation species. As far as lichen are concerned, you must be very, very clear. Lichen are not classified as plant. Very, very often we used to consider this lichen also as an example of plant. No, plant. Why they are not classified as plant? Because they does not have xylem and phloem, which are the two important character of any conventional plant. They are also known as vascular plant. तो plant के जो basic characters होते हैं, they are not found in lichen. Lichen is just an example of, again, mutualistic interaction between algae and fungi. Ligan is the body which is formed due to mutualistic interaction between algae and fungi, right? And you must be very clear. They are not plant. They can be considered as pre-vegetative structure, and usually they are found where? Aquatic ecosystem or aquatic location, usually. But as far as mosses are concerned, they are plant and they are found in terrestrial location. They are found in terrestrial location. ये सब चीजें ध्यान रखना, right? So lichen and mosses are the classic example of pioneer species. It is my last message about this particular topic, right? Now, this is the second stage of invasion. This invasion is followed by third stage. Third stage is the stage of competition and coaction. What it means, you can write down 2-line explanation about third stage. Various species starts competing with each other for satisfying their requirement, and in case of complementary condition of requirement, they used to live in coaction. So this is the third stage of primary succession. Now fourth one is reaction. Fourth stage is the stage of reaction. And what reaction is? Modification of climatic and physiographic condition due to action of invaded species. And last one is stabilization. Last stage is the stage of stabilization. Stabilization means what? Formation of a mature ecosystem. Mature ecosystem means what? The location which was barren land before some time. Now over that same location there is presence of forest ecosystem. So this forest ecosystem is an example of mature ecosystem. Formation of a mature ecosystem and stable presence of climax species stable presence of climax species within that mature ecosystem. Climax species within that mature ecosystem. Fine. So species which are noticeable in a mature ecosystem, they are known as climax species. So for a bird residing in a forest ecosystem, what should be your comment? Is it a pioneer species or climax species? Climax species. The journey of evolution was started from barren land, और वो barren land जो है वो एक ही बार forest ecosystem में तो convert हुआ नहीं होगा. Through these different stages, barren land से एक टाइम के बाद से वहां पे grasses का presence देखा गया होगा, then shrubs, and then after some time forest ecosystem. So the very formation of grassland and shrubs is the intermediate stage, and these intermediate processes are governed by these different factors, competition or reactions, and due to it after some time stabilization takes place, which means कि एक mature ecosystem अब वहां पे बनके तैयार हो चुका होगा, और उस मैच्योर इकोसिस्टम में जो भी स्पीशीज पाए जाएंगे, whatever, those species are referred as what? Climax species. So journey of ecological succession starts with pioneer species, and that journey reached at its culmination with the help of climax species, right? So, and one more suggestion I would like to share here. Please write these stages in this order only. ये order भी याद रखना, nudation followed by invasion, then competition, reaction and stabilization. Sometimes they used to ask question in this order, and they used to give different orders in form of option. And their question is ki which one is the correct order of primary succession, right? So I should terminate here only. In tomorrow's lecture we can start with secondary succession. Thank you.